Hello, Divorce and Beyond family. I've got some exciting news because we have teamed up with Headspace to guide you toward better mental health. With Headspace's meditation, mindfulness tools, and mental health support, you're set for a journey to a happier, healthier you. And there's more because if you sign up through our exclusive link, you'll enjoy 2 weeks of Headspace membership for free. So don't miss out on this opportunity to embrace your well-being. You can check out the show notes for the link or just go to divorcebeyond.com/headspace-Susan, and you'll be able to start your path to peace and joy today. This is just one more way that we can support you on your journey to a better beyond.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
This is an opportunity for me to embody the values I wish to instill in my children. You're not acting kind to your co-parent because they deserve it. You're acting kind to your co-parent because your children deserve the best example feasibly possible to be a kind human.
Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce, and most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today's episode is all about the business of co-parenting. We're talking about how neuroscience and mindset coaching are transforming conflict into collaboration. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Trina Nudson, a true innovator in the co-parenting space. Trina is the founder of the Lane Project and creator of the groundbreaking BEH2O program, which brings together neuroscience, business leadership strategies, and mindset coaching to help parents move beyond conflict and create a healthier, more collaborative dynamic. In our conversation, Trina shares how her unique approach has transformed even the most high-conflict co-parenting relationships, turning them into powerful partnerships for the benefit of their children. If you're ready to shift your perspective, find practical tools, and learn how to treat co-parenting as the most important business you'll ever run, this episode is for you. Now let's dive in and hear from Trina about how her BEH2O program is changing lives and safeguarding childhoods. So Trina, I very much appreciate you joining me today. I know we have a lot of co-parents out there who are really going to benefit from this conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Susan. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Trina, because I know that many people out there who are listening have probably heard someone say along the way, if they're in the divorce process and if they're co-parents, that, they may not be partners in love anymore, but they're still partners in raising their children, right? They hear this sort of concept of becoming neutral partners to raise their kids. But when you're talking about the business of co-parenting, you bring a lot more to it than just this high level, concept of being neutral partners. And I'm wondering, as we start, could you just tell us, because I know you well, and I know how passionate you are about this approach, how you came to this, how you really sort of honed in on the tips and the insights that we're going to talk about today.
Well, Susan, my whole mission my why has been safeguarding childhoods. I originally started as a foster care social worker, went to law school. I opened 2 businesses, and they didn't teach me how to run a business in school of social welfare. They sure as heck didn't teach me how to run it in law school at all. And so I went to the School of Hard Knocks, and I started learning how to run a business. And every workshop I went to, Susan, all I could think of is, wow, if I could get my co-parents to do this, everything would change. And so as I started to integrate the entrepreneurial operating system or Arbinger Institute, or integrating it into my work with co-parents, and the results were absolutely phenomenal. And so I'm so passionate about it, Susan, because I have been able to watch families transform from 10, 12, 15 years even of conflict to a working, functional relationship. And not only has it helped their co-parenting relationship, it's transformed their lives. I just get so excited about sharing it because it's a gift. It's a gift. And I want to safeguard childhoods. And the only way that I found to be able to be effective at doing it is to share the gift with the others.
Well, and I know that's your mission. We're going to talk a little bit about all the exciting things that you've done and are doing right now to help share the gift. But this episode is one of those things that you are doing to help share this, because, your method, and I've been in this business for a really long time. I have never seen anyone take sort of neuroscience, business leadership principles, and mindset coaching, like these three very disparate areas, and bring them together and apply them to this concept of co-parenting for parents, and especially parents, as you just mentioned, right, who are immersed in the cycle of conflict. You're not talking about parents maybe who are on day one of their divorce or the relationship going south. You work with families where this is a long-standing cycle that these parents have had a very difficult time co-parenting, and you've been able to help them. Let's talk a little bit about, because you mentioned that no one taught you how to run a business, but as you ran a business, you went to the School of Hard Knocks. But how did you come to such an understanding of neuroscience and mindset coaching as well?
When I didn't know how to run a business, Susan, it's kind of debilitating, particularly when it's not just a solo business. So my practice has therapists in it, and supervised parenting time providers and parent educators. And I needed to be my best self, right? And so how was I going to be my best self unless I started to shift my paradigm and started to shift my mindset? And Susan, when I started to feel that difference, it just equated to the same thing, that I had to share the entrepreneurial literature just as I had to share the paradigm shift literature, the mindset shift literature, because it just came together like a glove.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of your gifts, right? This is something I know from working with you, is that you're able to see the synergies here and bring that all together. And in fact, this concept of presenting as your best self, when you present as your best self, is something that's very embedded in what you discuss with parents, right? It's something that you talk with them about, because very often, right, especially for those parents, those co-parents who are immersed in a conflict cycle, when they're showing up to talk to each other, they're not usually presenting as their best selves, are they?
No, not at all, because they're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And Susan, I used to look at parents like, why would you do this to your kids? I use my why to undermine my why. Okay, my mission is safeguarding childhood, so I would get so frustrated at parents. Like, why would you do this? And they would leave my office more dysregulated than they actually came in. And so parents don't do this to their kids, or do not approach conflict in this way in spite of their kids. They do it for their kids. And so oftentimes, unfortunately, we as parents, we end up creating our own biggest fears. So it's really important for parents to understand, what are your values? What are those values that you want to instill in your children? And are you authentically, consistently exercising those values? Because if you're only doing it in the interactions with your kids, but you're not doing it in the interactions with your co-parent, It's really confusing for your kids. We're supposed to be kind to the homeless man on the street, but we can't even be kind to my mom or my dad. So I work with parents on identifying what are their top 3 to 5 values that they want to instill in their kids. And before they interact with their co-parent, they need to put on an armor. This is an opportunity for me to embody the values I wish to instill in my children. You're not acting kind to your co-parent because they deserve it. You're acting kind to your co-parent because your children deserve the best example feasibly possible to be a kind human. And I work with a lot of therapists. I've been to numerous co-parenting workshops, and I think where we get it wrong is we try to teach co-parents behavior. You need to treat your co-parent this way. Well, we're not in a place after we've had a very rocky relationship and a tough divorce to think positively about our co-parent. That's crazy business, right? And so we have to get to another level. We have to shift our mindset. And that's where the paradigm shift is. Because you can't say, I need to be nice, I need to be kind to my co-parent, but you can say, this is an opportunity for me to embody the values I wish to instill in my children.
Because they're always watching. And in fact, you were telling me a story about that mindset shift with one of the dads that you were working with. And I think it's such a great example. Maybe you'd share that story. This episode is brought to you by Yumi Jewelry, but before we dive into their fantastic offer, I want to first give you a quick preview of what's coming up in the second half of this episode, because trust me, you do not want to miss it. In part 2, Trina shares an incredibly powerful story about how one dad used her BEH2O mindset techniques to completely transform his relationship with his co-parent. And the results were nothing short of life-changing for their child. Plus, we'll get her top strategies for staying grounded when emotions run high, including a simple mindset exercise you can use before your next interaction with your co-parent. So stick with us because the best is yet to come. Now, let me take a moment to tell you about today's sponsor, Yumi Jewelry, who's helping make this episode possible.
So I always do the loving kindness meditation and people laugh at me about it, but once they start doing it, they get it. It's, may I be happy, may I be well, may I be safe, may I be peaceful and at ease. And then I ask them to think about their co-parent. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe, may you be peaceful and at ease. I'm not asking you to want that because your co-parent deserves it. I'm asking you to want that because your children deserve 2 parents who are at peace and at ease.
Now, let's take a little minute to talk about something special. If you follow me on Instagram, you all know how much I love my evil eye pendant. I love I have my bracelet. I have the pendant that goes around my neck. I wear evil eyes all the time. And so many of you have reached out asking where I got them. I'm thrilled to share with you all, drum roll please, that my favorite jewelry source, Yumi Jewelry, is now a sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. For me, Yumi Jewelry is more than just jewelry. The symbols are symbols of strength, individuality, and empowerment. And they handcraft each piece with love and care. And so they are designed to help women stand out and embrace our unique personalities. So whether it's an evil eye like I have chosen for protection, a hamsa for faith, or any other meaningful symbol, their pieces offer beauty and inspiration even during these tough times like divorce. So here's the best part. Yumi is giving my listeners an exclusive discount if you use the code BEYOND, that's BEYOND, all caps, at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. 20%. So if you're looking for a meaningful piece to keep you inspired or to protect you during this difficult time, visit divorcebeyond.com /YumiYou. That's YUMIYU. And treat yourself or treat someone you love to something special. You deserve it. Now, let's get back to the second half of the show.
A therapist once told me, because when I was working with parents, I said, lie to yourself. I don't care what you have to do, lie to yourself. And she looked at me and said, Trina, never say that again. Okay, now fast forward. I'm meeting with this dad, and we were in week 6 of a 16-week program that I do. And he said, Trina, I'm doing everything you're saying, and it's not working. And I said, well, what are you telling yourself? And he said, I'm telling myself that she might have good intentions. And I laughed and I said, well, do you believe that? And he said, well, no. And I said, well, then it's not going to work. What can you believe? And he said, I can believe it's an opportunity to return my focus to my son. And I said, okay, let's try that. And he did. And let me fast forward 6 weeks later, I was in a joint meeting with him and mom. And mom said, I just want to share this. Our son was in the back of the car the other day, and he said, Mom, I really like having 2 homes. And at that point, that dad was able to begin to believe that mom might have good intentions. But 6 weeks prior, he wasn't. And so we have to have compassion for ourselves. It is okay. This is hard. Life is hard. And if we're beating ourselves up, we're modeling for our children that we can't fail forward. What a huge gift I think we miss in divorce situations. Oh, woe is me. Our children have to have 2 homes. It's such a beautiful opportunity to teach our children how to fail forward and to hold themselves accountable when they mess up, to apologize. Our children actually can benefit from this if we take the mindset that our children are going to be more well-rounded because of our differences, as opposed to sitting in shame and blame.
Which is where most parents spend a great deal of their time, in their shame and then the blame of their co-parent, right? We know this. We see this over and over again. So that paradigm shift, that mindset shift is so critical. And another tip that you shared with me that I think is really helpful to parents would be, let's look at a normal situation for parents, when co-parents, when they reach out to the other one to speak about things. Often it's done on the fly. The outreach is because Billy forgot to bring his backpack when he came from the other parent's house, or it's done in the heat of the moment, or you fire off that nasty gram because something happened. And you don't recommend that, I know, but you have a very business forward approach to thinking about how you're going to show up for your interactions with your co-parent. And I think that is something that is very probably a different thought for parents, but something that can immediately change the paradigm for them if they can get their head around this.
I'm a very anxious person, Susan. I don't know if you knew that. I'm very anxious. And so when I get text messages from anyone, it doesn't even have to be my husband, I immediately used to tell myself that they needed a response right then. But they didn't need a response right then. I wanted to give them the response right then. Or as a guardian ad litem, which is an attorney that represents the best interests of the kids, I thought I had to be available 100% of the time, until I realized I really wasn't available when I was answering the phone at 9:00 at night, or while I was on vacation or in line at the grocery store. And that began to resonate with me. So I started scheduling all of my calls. But I didn't want my clients to be like, oh, she's there. She's just not answering the phone. So I explained to them, I set boundaries not because I don't care. It's because I do care. And you deserve my 100% attention. So I schedule all my calls so I can give you that. If I was answering the phone all day, every day, I would not give anyone my 100% attention. So then I began to see how that would work. And then it worked wonders in my interactions with professionals and my clients. Why wouldn't I share that with my co-parents? So now I suggest to my co-parents that they keep it real. When are you your best self? Would you prefer to respond to your co-parent at 8 a.m. in the morning, over the lunch hour at noon, or 7 p.m. at night? What works for you? And understand what works for your co-parent as well. And then say, I will check my messages once a day at this time. And then there's amazing apps which act as a container, like Our Family Wizard. So in my work with clients, so the ding of the Our Family Wizard, right, could put them in a panic. So we have to put in our armor. Put on our armor before we open the OFW? What are the values that I want to embody? Because I want to instill those in my child. Okay, I want to be kind. I want to be empathetic, and I want to be proactive. Before you open that OFW, I am kind, I am empathetic, and I am proactive. Put on that armor at a time when you are at peace, not the kids are running in the background or your phone's ringing, and then embody that, and then let it go. And then you will check it again. But they're going to say that I'm not responding. Oh, you respond. You respond when you are your best self and you consistently do it. So if it's every 48 hours at 7 p.m. at night, then that's when you do it. It's no different than having a weekly business meeting, Susan. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing in the entire universe. My husband makes buildings go up. And for years, she was like, Trina, you got to have a weekly business meeting. I was like, Jason, that is not a billable hour. I have no time for a weekly business meeting. I would email my staff on Christmas or, on Saturday, and they weren't their best self to respond. But if I can table the information and the agenda for our Wednesday business meetings, we get a whole heck of a lot more done.
That is so true. It's so interesting. I work with a lot of practitioners who are setting up practices, and I have one group that I'm working with right now. There's 3 of them setting up a new business, and they are very stringent about having their weekly partner meeting where they get together, rain or shine, whatever it is, and they have 2-hour meetings every Monday. And their growth and the path forward as a business, because we were talking about how to turn your parenting, your co-parenting into a business or treat it that way, but their growth as compared to some of my other clients who don't do that, don't commit to that, is astronomical. They have gotten so much more accomplished and are so much more aligned. By the way, it brings accountability into the relationship as well, right? Because they leave that meeting and they come back knowing they need to have accomplished and done what they said they were going to do, each one of them in the interim period of time. And I wonder what role accountability might play in this co-parenting relationship as well as a business principle.
The accountability, I work really hard. I think his name is Michael Timms. He has a video on self-accountability and wrote a book on it. But we have to not sit and we want to hold our co-parent accountable. We have to sit and we need to hold ourselves accountable. So let's say that we decide, I'm working with a co-parenting pair, and we decide we're only going to streamline our communication and we're going to communicate once a week. I'm going to send you, I call it a kids news on Friday, and you're going to respond on Sunday, and then we're going to streamline communication. Absent an emergency, someone's leg falling off, we're not going to communicate anymore. Then your co-parent just keeps it up. Well, do you respond? No, you don't respond. Because when you do respond, you are training your co-parent to keep responding outside of the regular pattern. It's no different, Susan. I would go on vacation. I'd have my out of office on and I'd respond all the time. And then I'm like, why do people keep bothering me while I'm on vacation? Why do people keep bothering me while I'm on my weekends? Because I respond. So if we could focus on holding ourselves accountable versus holding our co-parents accountable, we're able to control what we have control over. And then our co-parents aren't feeling the shame and blame. And so we're inviting change in our co-parents rather than repelling the change in our co-parents. I tell co-parents, like, okay, you want to blame your co-parent and send an OFW message that's full of blame and shame? You're saying, okay, hello, amygdala. Let me talk to your amygdala, your reptilian brain, your baboon brain. So you have to be aware of what you're actually sending. And are your children there when you're sending it? Because if your children are there and they're sending it and you just entertained a conversation with your amygdala, that amygdala now is the one who's interacting with your kids. So I always do the loving kindness meditation and people laugh at me about it. But once they start doing it, they get it. It's, may I be happy? May I be well? May I be safe? May I be peaceful and at ease? And then I ask them to think about their co-parent. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. I'm not asking you to want that because your co-parent deserves it. I'm asking you to want that because your children deserve two parents who are at peace and at ease. Another paradigm shift, right? I think far too often we want too much from parents. They're not able to give it, but they do want what's best for their kids. But it's okay they don't want what's best for their co-parent yet, right? But they can get to a place. We can get to a place and we can start to think what's best for our kids.
Well, and I think that there's something so powerful in that, in realizing that what you are hoping and wishing and, thinking about your co-parent is really you're hoping and wishing that they can show up as the best parent possible for your kids. Everything flows back down to your children.
Yes. And that's the grounding force. That's what's going to keep you from jumping in the tornado. So I constantly say, don't get picked up in the tornado. Don't get picked up in the tornado. And I can't take ownership for that because I had a 16-year-old girl that I was doing child inclusion with when I was doing some work with her parents, and she drew herself in a tornado. And so when I did a feedback session with mom and dad, that became their mantra of we need to make sure that we're not swept up in the tornado because then there's a lot of collateral damage and that's our child. And so the grounding force, you maintain being grounded in your values. So if your co-parent's in that tornado, you do not want to be in that tornado because then there's no one for your child, right? That is grounded in peace.
This is just making me think, because you were talking about that tornado, and it's a little aside, but yesterday I was talking to a young woman. She's in her 30s. She's early 30s, like 32 years old. She's a lovely person. And we were talking about children of divorce. Her parents divorced when she was 12. Okay, she's now 32. So we're talking about 20 years later. And we were talking about Thanksgiving. She had just experienced Thanksgiving, the two parents households still. And we were having a little chat about how difficult it is going between two parents households. But she also talked about the fact that it's a landmine because her father still, it has a lot of very negative feelings about her mother, who remarried years ago, moved on, has new family and all that. But her dad is still caught up in this world where she couldn't even mention that she had been and seen her mom and her mom's family for Thanksgiving when she came over to her dad's for Thanksgiving. She had to monitor her conversation with her father because she knew if she said something positive about her mother, her father would erupt into some sort of a conversation. So for the parents out there who are thinking, well, this will all calm down after the divorce, or this will all calm down when we get beyond this emotional time or that. That is a family that 20 years later, their 32-year-old daughter, who's planning her wedding right now, is still navigating the treacherous waters of her father's anger and his inability to deal with the divorce that happened 2 decades ago.
It's funny that you would share that, because I think that's when I realized I couldn't sit on this idea anymore. I had to create something, because I started representing the GAL kiddos that I had represented were coming back as parents. So I wasn't creating the generational changes that I sought to create when I opened my companies, and my mission was safeguarding childhoods. I think we really miss the point that when there is a divorce, we have a gift, and that gift is helping our children, or modeling for our children, how to constructively resolve conflict. And conflict isn't bad. Conflict can actually be amazing. It leads to more well-rounded decisions, right? As long as we're open-minded and able to listen, like we're 5% wrong, right? Just listen, just like you're 5% wrong. Be open-minded to another possibility. And that is a huge gift that we can give our children, because they're going to have conflict in life. Whether it be with a significant other, whether it be with a friend, whether it be with a colleague, anyone. And we can show them conflict is okay, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world.
Conflict is inevitable, right? We say that a lot as legal
Yes.
practitioners and dispute resolution professionals, et cetera, in this world. It is inevitable. Your children are not going to go through life without entering into conflict with others at times. And they're going to learn how to deal with that from their parents, from seeing you and what you're putting out there in the world. And part of it is going back to that mindset shift that you were talking about. I was thinking about the other story that you told me, because resentment and anger towards your co-parent is a very common part of this paradigm, this conflict cycle, right? And what we see so often with people is, or we hear from a co-parent, well, it's not fair. They're not doing their part, or I have to do everything. And so that their engagement with their co-parent is all based on that resentment and that anger. You were talking about a mom, I think, that was angry because they felt like they were having to take up a disproportionate share of managing the children's lives. And you were able to turn that around in your conversation with the parent to put a different, paradigm, to pull in a different way of looking at it from that business perspective. And I think that would be helpful for people to hear.
Well, I think I keep saying EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system, which I think was a very pivotal point in my company's lives when I started to implement it. And they say you need to have the right people in the right seats. And so I was working with a mom, and she was very frustrated because she keeps making all the children's therapy appointments. She drives the children to therapy. She is the administrator of everything. And I asked her what she did for a living, and she was a manager of like 900 people, and she got very excited and was very proud of what she does and how good she is at what she does. And I said, awesome. Is your co-parent very good at that? And she was like, no. I said, okay, well, let's take a step back. If you were running a business, would you have an accountant do your marketing? She was like, well, no. And I said, well, would you have a marketer do your accounting? And she was like, no. Should the marketer yell at the accountant that they're not bringing in a lot of work? And she's like, oh. I was like, what? And she had the epiphany, right? She lit up that she is the best person for the job. So two things can be true. She could be doing it all. It could not be fair. That could be true. But it's also true that she is the right person in that seat if they want their business to succeed. And so it's up to her, which is she going to focus on? Because focusing on how unfair it is not going to propel their business forward. It's not going to help them achieve their mission statement, right? But if she focuses on, I'm the best person for this job, that's why I'm doing it. What could dad do? Where would he be the best person for the job? Oh, as the basketball coach. Okay. Do you play basketball? No. Okay. Well, maybe dad then can volunteer as the basketball coach. What's really ironic for me is the idea of affinity and how, I mean, if my kids want their car fixed, they sure as heck are not going to go to me. Hands down. They are not going to go to me. If they want to go shopping for a new outfit, they sure as heck aren't going to go to their dad. Why? Because we have different strengths. Everyone has different strengths. But why, when parents separate, are our children supposed to have the exact same relationship, mirror images of one another with mom as they do with dad? Because if they don't, it's not fair. Well, we're not mirror images of one another, right? So it's not, never were. I sure as heck don't have the same relationship with both of my parents because they're two different people. My parents have been married for 63 years and I don't have the same relationship with them, right? I still call my dad at age 8, he's 82, and my mom at 83 for different things because they are different. And so if we as parents can look at it as, oh, okay, just more connected with mom on the theater and more connected with dad on football, that's okay, right? Our children are more well-rounded because of their differences.
And that's, it always goes to, I remember for my many years of practice as a family law attorney, why the courts have a stated preference for joint custody. And, it really comes from that theory that children benefit from having two parents, different though they may be. And in fact, those differences might be the very strength of having two parents. Are all those differences positive? No. But neither is the world, right? The world has ups, downs, as we said, conflict's inevitable. So are a lot of other things. You can't sugarcoat the entire thing. Children need to have the benefit of both of their parents.
My stepdaughter, Lane, has a beautiful analogy. She's 24. And she says that she was given the gift to see multiple game pieces. So with her mom and her stepdad and me and her dad, she was able to try on different game pieces before she decided which game piece she actually wanted to be. But she ended up creating her own game piece because she liked pieces of all four of us. But so she sees it as a gift and she sees herself as being successful because she was able to experience life in two completely different environments. One wasn't better than the other. They were just very different.
Which is really, in the end, the gift that you were talking about and an example of a childhood saved, right? A childhood that wasn't sort of at the mercy of conflictual co-parenting. So one of the things, I know we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that people hear about, because you mentioned earlier, you have a multi-week program that you do with parents that walks them through in a much, much deeper fashion, obviously, but this is where you've seen the success, right? We've shared some of the high level insights that you've gleaned over your many years. But tell us a little bit about the program that you do with parents.
Well, I have a 16-week co-parenting curriculum that both parents participate in. It's called BEH2O. BE stands for beryllium, which is a strong but flexible metal. I want clients to maintain their values and hold firm to them, but also be flexible. And then water is the adaptability. So I don't have any magic fairy dust in this program, Susan. So I'm not going to be able to change your co-parent. So obstacles, rocks will get thrown in our way and we have to be really fluid to go around it. So that's the be water strategy, if you will. And it's very multifaceted. We do classes, we do joint meetings, we do individual meetings with each parent. It culminates at week 15 with a family meeting. It is not therapy. It is, we're building a new model. The old one is obsolete. I'm not going to even try to fix it. Why is it 16 weeks? I always say, have you ever tried to go to a gym and work out for a day and then be upset because you're not fit, right? This is it's neuroplasticity. It takes time to build those new neural pathways. And ironically, my first version was 8 weeks and people asked for more. And so it's a 16-week program. And I've been doing it here in Kansas for the 16-week program for the past 5 years. And I was talking to an amazing individual, I think her name was Susan Guthrie, about that there was something that was missing within me and I didn't know what it was. And she could see it because you could see it because I light up when I talk about BEH2O because of the transformation I've seen with so many co-parents. And then I realized, oh, BEH2O is a gift. I can't just keep it in Kansas. I have to share it with the world. And ever since, I haven't looked back. So my first beta group was in October of this year, and I trained 8 certified coaches how to run BEH2O, but it's much more than a 32-hour training. I do 10 one-on-one sessions with the coaches. I help them fill their cohorts in their community. Our goal is to touch every state with a BEH2O certified coach in the next 2.5 years. And they will become our master coaches that will then train coaches within each state, because it's more than just a curriculum, Susan. It's a movement.
It is a movement, and you're actually filling your second cohort now. So though, to our colleagues out there who are listening, because I know I have a lot of professionals who listen to the show as well, if they want to become a certified professional, where should they go to get more information on the BEH2O certification program?
If you're a professional, it's www.beh2ocoaching.com. And if you're interested and you're a parent that wants to participate in our 16-week program with one of our new certified coaches, you can go to www.beh2ocoparenting.com. Or reach out to me and I can connect you. All of my 16-week classes are in person, but my coaches are doing them virtually.
Which means they are available to you out there so that you can take on the business of co-parenting and enter into the paradigm shift. Of course, as always, I will have all of the links and information in the show notes for you all, because the reason we wanted to make sure to get this episode out is to share the gift of BEH2O and help more and more people see the change that Trina has been seeing now for years. And I hope for all of you who are listening that you can have, this change not only for yourselves, but really for your families as you go forward. And I'm just so supportive of what you're doing, Trina. I really admire it. I love the innovators in the world and the people who have vision, and you are definitely one of them. And that's how the world gets changed. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, Susan. I really appreciate it.
Wasn't that an amazing conversation with Trina? And I want to wrap it up by leaving you with this episode's golden nuggets, which are 3 powerful takeaways that you can apply to your own co-parenting journey. So golden nugget number 1, mindset is everything. Before engaging with your co-parent, ground yourself in the values you want to model for your children. Remember, your actions speak louder than words, and your kids are always watching. Golden nugget number 2, treat co-parenting like a business. Establish clear boundaries, set regular communication schedules, and focus on accountability, starting with yourself. Just like a successful business, co-parenting thrives on structure and collaboration. And golden nugget number 3, Embrace your unique strengths. Stop focusing on what your co-parent isn't doing and instead recognize the unique value you bring to the table. Celebrate the fact that your children benefit from the strengths both parents bring to their lives. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to check out the show notes for links to Trina's BEH2O program and all the resources that we mentioned. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could benefit. And I'll see you next week on Divorce and Beyond. Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.